Have you heard that Ontario social workers will soon have to write the licensing exam to become registered as social workers? Well, it's true, and we're going to talk about some important things that you should consider if you are studying to become a social worker, and this is something that's going to impact you over the next couple of years. So first things first, do social workers need to be licensed in Canada? Yes, social work is a protected title, and so to legally call yourself a social worker, you need to be registered with the appropriate governing body. Each province has its own regulatory body. So, for example, in Ontario, we have the Ontario College of Social Workers and Social Service Workers. I may just refer to that as the college for the remainder of this video because that's a bit of a mouthful. And right now, to get registered, you have to have the appropriate education, complete the application, and then fulfill any continuing practice requirements that they require. And in the near future, they are rolling out the entry to practice exam, which is something that any new registrant is going to require in order to qualify and practice as a registered social worker. This decision was made back in 2021, and it's in line with what a lot of other jurisdictions do. Honestly, even though I was pretty happy at the time that I didn't have to write an exam to register as a social worker, I was kind of surprised that it wasn't a requirement at the time. So many other professions and even other jurisdictions that regulate the social work profession require an entry to practice exam. So I will say it's not really a huge surprise that the Ontario College is rolling out an exam. I would say that it's very much in line with what other jurisdictions are currently doing. So when will the licensing exam start? The college has said that they are planning for the exam to roll out sometime in 2027. This is going to give the college time to develop a structure and create the exam. And any updates about the actual timeline can be found on the college's website. So if you are already a registered social worker, will you be required to take the exam? This is an important question and something that I worried about when I first learned about the exam, but the answer to that is no. Basically, the college has said that you will get grandfathered in and they won't expect you to go back and complete the exam if you are already registered as a social worker. They did say that it's important to note that if you let your registration lapse for any reason and then you decide to re-register as a social worker, you are going to have to fulfill all the same requirements as any other person who is registering. So if you go to re-register at the time when the exam is rolled out, then yes, you are going to have to complete the exam at that time. So with the exam rolling out in a couple of years, if you know that you want to register and you qualify, it might make sense for you to qualify sooner rather than later so that you can skip the exam requirement. All right, who will administer the social work exam? So the college has said that the licensing exam will be administered by the Association of Social Work Boards. This is an organization that is responsible for creating and managing social work licensing exams across North America. So this is an independent organization outside of the college who will be coming in and they'll be the ones managing the exam. This is something that I have seen in my work with MSW applicants who are applying to programs in the States. They often are going through the process of doing the ASWB exams for registration in their states. And it's important to note that the Ontario College of Social Workers and Social Service Workers are currently working with the ASWB to develop their own version of the exam. So they won't be copying verbatim what other jurisdictions are using. Instead, they are working to develop a version of the exam that reflects social work practice. And I think another important thing that they really talked about on their website is acknowledging the concerning research that came out about passing rates for racialized and marginalized communities. Basically, the ASWB exam in jurisdictions in the States have a lower pass rate for racialized and marginalized people. And so I think that's a huge part of the conversation that they are having in developing their own exam, and how do they make sure that the exam is equitable, accessible, and truly reflects social work in Canada. So how can you start preparing for the social work licensing exam in Ontario? While we're still a few years away from it actually rolling out, it is not too early to start thinking about preparing for it, especially if that is something that is going to impact you in the next couple of years. So my first tip is stay informed. Regularly check updates from the Ontario College of Social Workers and Social Service Workers and the ASWB for the most current information on exam details and any other tips or resources that they create for you. Tip number 2, focus on your studies. So if you are currently enrolled in a social work program, focus on mastering some of the foundational skills and knowledge covered in your coursework, as those are probably the same kinds of things that you are going to see on the exam. Number 3 is review the Canadian Association of Social Workers Code of Ethics. My understanding of the exams is that they really want to make sure that you are practicing in a way that is ethical. That really is like the overall goal of the Ontario College of Social Workers and Social Service Workers. So I would anticipate that a lot of the questions would probably be centered around ethics and ethical practice. And then finally, seek professional development opportunities. Continue learning, continue growing your tool belt so that you can add that to your knowledge base and become more competent in the work that you do and your own knowledge and understanding. I'd love to know your thoughts or your questions about the exam that's rolling out. Let me know in the comments any questions or concerns or any thoughts that you have about the social work exam coming to Ontario.